Kalage Sundarakaram Sadaika Priyadarshanam Ajnana Nashakam Devam Sadgurum Muralidaram Murali Mandita Karakamalam Munijanamohanam Vyatyastapadam Vanamala Dharinam Prema Bhakta Mandala Nitya Kirtidam Premika Varadam Ashrayeham Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Buddhir Balam Yasho Dhairyam Nirbhayatvam Marogada Ajatyam Vakpadutvancha Hanumat Smaranat Bhave. Pranams to all our Satsang brothers and sisters. With our beloved Guru Maharaj Maharanyam Shri Shri Muralidhara Swamiji's grace, we are exploring the topic of intelligent living, and Swamiji himself blessed the topic, subtopic, can we live in the present moment? And we are exploring various principles, precepts, practices, which helps us to make our life more productive, and some practical anecdotes to support it, all under the basic theme of how do I use all my intelligence when I am making choices, when I am living my life in the present moment, and also how do I enjoy this journey of life by being in the present moment. And I wanted to share this 1/4 of a sloka, though we are making it totally non-religious as far as possible. This is a very wonderful gem from our Bhagavatam. And it is said in Bhagavatam, even if you read half a shloka or 1/4 of a shloka every day, it will bring us tremendous blessings. Slokartham shlokapadam va. And I'm going to show you 1/4 of a shloka that encapsulates so much of precepts, so much wisdom in 1/4 of a shloka. And that shloka's 1/4 is bhavo hi bhavakaranam. The current thought determines our future. Bhavo abdina thought, that our perspective, our paradigm, our thought is called bhavam. The way in which we look at the world is bhavam. The way in which I look at myself is bhavam. The way in which I look at an event is bhavam. The way in which I respond to things is bhavam. And just 1/4 of a sloka, bhavo hi bhavakaranam. Bhava means future, that bhavika vendiyat, that which is going to come in future. So very beautifully, this precept is there, just strewed somewhere there. It is there in the second half of Krishna's Katha. And it comes during an episode where there was this person who hated Krishna like anything. And whole life he spent hating Krishna. All the words were always abusive towards Krishna. And that person ended up attaining Krishna, attaining the highest state of Anandam. And they all came to a conclusion, whether positive or negative, his thoughts were all centered around Krishna, isn't it? Hence, his future, which is his destiny, finally landed up in Krishna's feet. And here everybody concluded, bhavo hi bhavakaranam. If we can somehow put the right thought now, we are going to reap the right future in the days to come. And if we continue with the unripe thoughts of the past, the current state of suboptimal happiness is going to be what our future is going to be. And we can't run our life with rear view mirror as my directing force to run my car. I can't drive my car looking at the rear view mirror when I have to go forward, isn't it? So the beauty is, most of what I am experiencing right now is a lag. And what I actually did right now, or what I'm experiencing right now, is the effect of something which I already invested it in the past. And now that may make us feel helpless. But then the flip side of it is what Bhagavatam tells us, bhavo hi bhava karana. So why do you now fret over what happened or what is even happening when you have the power to change the future by changing the stream of thoughts or quality of thoughts or direction of thoughts? Bhavo hi bhava karana. And this is what is directing most of our discussions. And it is especially what directed the discussion we had about how thought leads to an act, which leads to the repetition of the act. Repetition of an act becomes a habit, and a bunch of habits becomes our character, and our character determines the destiny. So the chain of cause and effect is not discussed in Bhagavatam. It says if you have a good quality thought right now, you are invested in a good future, in the good future. Your future is brighter because of the quality of thoughts right now. That is a control we have in our life. That is the responsibility we have in running our lives. And responsible people understand and embrace this. And they understand what I think now is the seeds for my future experience or the future harvest or whatever you call it. As you sow, so you reap, isn't it? So with this in mind, and with the blessings of our beloved Guru Maharaj Maharanyam Sri Sri Muralidhara Swamiji, and by the mercy of our chosen deity for most of us, my chosen deity, which is Premika Vardhan, Madhuri Saki Sameta Premika Vardhan, let us explore more towards this topic and theme of how do I make the most of now. And let me quickly recap about acceptance. We said acceptance is not to fight the dead past. Acceptance is all about how do I use my future need or purpose to guide the present. And of course, acceptance does not preclude or exclude any learning from our experience. And learning is best done if we can be very non-judgmental about it. That looking in the past itself should not be in a non-accepting way. So I am looking at the past to see how can I make my present thought better quality than yesterday, so that my future is brighter and happier and more productive. And then we also talked about this fundamental two flowers. Present is the dark line. That's what I am right now. I have a choice to be either do what I do right now, think what I think right now, choose what I choose right now, decide what I decide right now, purely based on what happened yesterday, last year, etc., just goaded by the past, or my driving force, my sponsoring thought for my decision making can be in the future, supported by my past learning. The what shall be the future, the how shall be from the learning of the past. The what I need to do now should be determined by the future. How do I actually get it accomplished is supported by the intelligence which I have gathered by my past interactions in a situation or with people. But the whole problem becomes the what is decided by the past becomes a problem. Then I'm merely continuing in a reactionary way to continue the misery, which is what created the issue in the past. I'm continuing it in the present, and the current bhava, the current thought leads to my future again. So I am reaping the same thing again and again. And the example given by our Swamiji is a very repulsive example to put home a point. He says, if we continue to think the way we thought and do what we did and not even observe what we did, சாப்பிட்டதையே திருப்பி வாந்தி எடுத்து திருப்பி திருப்பி வாயில போட்டுக்கிற மாதிரி. Do you see how repulsive it is? What it means is, what we ate, we vomit and then eat it back. Does it sound nice? When it's this, what it is for the body, this metaphor is true for the mind also. And they say we carry about 90 to 95% of the automatic negative thoughts of yesterday today. It's called ants, automatic negative thoughts. unless we are very observant, we are going to carry the burden of the past. And we are going to carry it more, more until it becomes very unbearable. And when it becomes very unbearable, I don't have strength, I don't have energy, I don't have time, I don't have attention for my need, which needs to be taken care in the future. And they give a typical example, an anecdote, which sort of makes us remember this, because people remember in anecdotes better than people remembering concepts. Is once a speaker asked the audience, how much does a glass of water weigh? So he filled the glass with water. And then he said, how much does it weigh? Let me fill it here. It's hot water, so I can't even drink it now. So people asked, can you bear the weight of this water? And they said, yeah, it's hardly a few grams. Then he said, hold on and keep holding like this. For how much time? The weight does not change, but the burden will change now. It is a small thing. It is maybe a few grams. How much would it be? Maybe 100 ml, and the density is 1. So maybe 100 grams, you see, or 200 grams. That's what I have out here. I can carry this, but if you continue carrying it like this, I'm slowly going to start going to feel the pain. And though technically it is 100 gram, it is going to weigh like 1,000 kilos after 2 hours, you see. Likewise, the small little stuff which we carry to the future, that which we don't let go, that which we take it right now. And as we keep carrying and keep accumulating again and again over future, what happens is it's going to at one point of time be unbearable, even though technically each of them is a small quantum. But carrying it forward, holding it all the time is going to make it very burdensome. So the quicker we practice, how we actually practice, how we actually look to the future to determine what we do now, is going to reduce the burden of keeping that glass of water down. You see, that's the way we need to go forward. So the small diagram was inspired by a small talk by our Swamiji in Premika Bhavanam, where he was talking about Bhagavad Gita. And then it suddenly came. He just spoke for a few seconds this and then moved on. And few of us understood the significance of that. We did a little bit of a thinking, and I thought maybe we should put it pictorially for people to get the significance of this quarter sloka, which our Swamiji just strewed like a diamond and went on, you see. And that's how important it is for us to start observing. And as I said, that is the first step. And the first step is, thankfully, we have something to touch and play. So here, first step towards living in the present is this. And when we actually start observing, only then we understand what I don't know really, what unconsciously I'm going, and the things which I'm doing without even deliberation, things which are automatically carried forward from the past. And we already saw it. Automation is a gift given by nature to our mind. Because if we have to focus our attention and energy on every small thing we do, then we would go mad. It's going to be a big drain in energy. So some things are automated, you see. Our brushing of the teeth is automated. You see, we don't carefully brush the airport, especially when we are just awake. And our driving to work, if it has been done for more than, say, a month, it is automated. And when there is a red light, stopping in a red light has become automated for us, you see, because it's all wired. But then it has the flip side also. The flip side is most of the decisions should not be automated. Na? And in project management, they call something called as an activity trap. Activity trap is continuing to do an activity because nobody questioned why it was there in the first place. And generally people say, that is what we do, that is how it is, this is how we have been doing. And we continue doing. There are many cases where the whole system changed, but yet they continued with the activity. A good example I read when I was in school, we used to get a book called Reader's Digest, you see. And it used to have a lot of funny things there. I still remember that. And there is a column in Reader's Digest called Humor in Uniform. I don't know if they still continue that and all that. But that was very significant. I remember that now. There used to be a army barrage or whatever you call it, camp. And the two cadets were supposed to paint the red lines around that march ground. And while taking the pail of paint across that marching ground, one of the cadets drops the pail. And in army, he dropped the pail. I don't know which country he belonged to, but he dropped the pail. They were completely terrified. Then that person said, quickly get another pail of paint. And they took another pail, they painted all the corners, and then there was a splash in the center. Na? So they made it into a nice, lovely square, so that at least if people won't obviously see it is a spilled paint. These two cadets were transferred out, and after 20 years, they came back as some lieutenant or whatever. And then they found that center square was neatly painted every year because they thought it is also part of the system. So every year, whether the corner is painted properly or not, central square is properly painted. Nobody ever questioned why it is there for the first time. You see, it's called activity trap. We did something which made sense in the past. It is not something stupid which came into our being. It made sense in the past. But if you don't question most of what we do day in and day out, then that becomes a little bit of sub-intelligence, suboptimal intelligence, because that's what is called activity trap. It just continues. And a spiritual example is given by our Swamiji. There was a mutt, okay, and in the mutt, they were supposed to do meditation and attain Bhagavan. And generally in the mutt, people were like that. And all the Mathadhipatis were pretty sharp there. It's an hypothetical mutt. Resemblance to anything and all is purely coincidental. It is not what we are trying to do. It's just a fable. And that mutt head sat down, he did dhyana, he attained. Then he nominated a Sishya who, his disciple, who also did tremendous service to him. He also tried to meditate. But when he was trying to meditate, there was this little cat which was running here and there, meow, meow. And when this cat was running here and there, he was tremendously disturbed. And his personal assistant was watching him. The cat is running disturbed. Cat is running disturbed. Then he thought, if the cat keeps running like that and I'm disturbed, the best way for me to focus on my attention is to somehow put the cat in its place. So he asked his assistant, go and tie it in that pillar immediately. So the assistant took the cat, made a nice collar of the cat and tied it to the pillar. And now cat didn't run around, so he could able to do the dhyana, he attained. Then the personal assistant became the guru now. So he sat down to do dhyana. And obviously, he didn't know why he was not able to do dhyana at all properly. Then he thought, then he thought my guru also couldn't do dhyana properly. And so he decided, what did my guru do when he didn't do dhyana properly? Oh, he tied a cat. So he asked his assistant to go buy a cat. And then he tied him the same pillar and said, Ade strap, Ade length. And then the cat was tied. And then, because of that placebo effect or whatever effect, he attained. Now, his assistant was watching all that. And he watched his guru, he watched his guru's guru also. Then he realized, my guru's guru tried to do dhyana. And he tied a cat, then he attained. My guru did dhyana, he couldn't do dhyana. So he bought a cat and tied it. Then he decided, why should I do dhyana? Buy a cat and tie it out. Now, tying the cat has become, if you tie the cat, you'll attain it. You see, that's the activity trap. We have to every now, and it happens for any religion. And that's why, I'm sorry, I'm going to the weekdays now, but that is the reason why divinity descends every now and then to put things in order. That which made sense earlier won't make sense now. And we can't be talking about things which are defunct and miss the core, you see, and hold on to the periphery. So every descent of divinity, especially in Sanatana Dharma, is a revolution. Everybody revolutionized. If you carefully look at the history of the people who started a tradition, initially they are revolutionaries. And then around them, a tradition comes around, you see. And it's important, we needs a tradition. Of course, you need a tradition. You need to preserve something. You need a tradition. If there is no tradition, everything is free for all, you will lose the originality. Now you have Bhagavad Gita. Everybody is writing a book on Bhagavad Gita. And now the basic intent and purport of Bhagavad Gita is now tainted by people's biases, prejudices, access to grain, the one who sponsors them, etc. So until we have a tradition which preserves what the Purvacharyas said about Bhagavad Gita, we may lose the real essence of Bhagavad Gita in 20, 30 years, you see. And so traditions are important. But then every now and then Mahatma comes down, set the tradition right. That's the spiritual part of it. Let us come to our day-to-day life part of it. Day-to-day life, things which made sense earlier may not make sense now, which is the reason why I need to be careful when I start analyzing or observing, not analyzing, observing what am I actually thinking right now, what is guiding my decision making, etc. Otherwise, we would be continuing to do this type of a choice making, etc., based on a dead past, which is no longer relevant right now, and we are caught in what is called as an activity trap. I'm doing it because that's how it's being done, you see. And that transformation happens when we do consciously. So to move from unconscious incompetence, which is this area, and I move to conscious incompetence, which means I start observing. I don't jump into making solution, because we already discussed that I need to frame the problem correctly. If I frame the problem wrongly, I'm going very fast in a wrong road, you see. And if the problem is he is the problem, that is the problem, event is the problem, that is the symptom. And we need to go a little deeper to understand the problem is always a need. And the need is always shown by typically a feeling. And so unless I frame the problem correctly, I'm solving a wrong problem, which will lead to tremendous confusion. It will lead to additional chaos, you see, if I don't solve the right problem. So here, first, I need to first observe myself without any judgment and to see how I make these decisions, etc. And then I move from this phase to this phase, the third phase, which is the phase of making small changes, making small habit corrections, and which is actually piggybacked on a routine. I hope you all remember what we discussed. Luckily, I do. And I piggyback a new behavior or a new habit on an existing routine I have. And typically, we talked about food or sleep or some day-to-day activities which I do. I can piggyback that on that, so that this is slowly injected in, introduced, a change is introduced without too much of monitoring, without too much of bothering to see if I'm doing it properly or not, without too much of effort. And we also said that any behavior or a change has two elements. One is the cue, which is the trigger, and the trigger better be a part of my existing schedule so that I can take care of it without much effort. And the second thing is the consequence. So if I have to get the passion, the strong feeling, the strong need for me to do an activity to fulfill the purpose, it is fed by constant thinking of the consequence, you see. And positive consequence, negative consequence, both. Typically, it is better to think only about the positive consequence and what is the benefit I will get if I do it or if I don't do it, etc. You see, and that is my conscious competence. And so, knowingly, deliberately, I make the small little behavior changes, small little habits introduced, small little changes, and I practice it. As I practice it, thankfully, we have this gift of habit. The habit can be very crippling, or the habit can be empowering, depending on how we use it. It is habits are neither evil nor good. It is just a habit. How we use it, how we understand it, and how we progress with it makes it good or evil. So habit can be used to actually strengthen ourselves. Habits are nothing but automations of wiring done in the brain, so that you don't have to each time use too much of மூளையை கசக்க வேண்டாம். To do too much of thinking analysis, we want to avoid. So we put subroutines, you see, automate it. And so that habits, which are positive habits, automations are very good. For us, it's easy. And then we go to what is called as naturally correct, which is exactly what we call as effortless competence. The general corporate term for that is unconscious competence, but we don't like the word unconscious at all. So effortless competence sounds a lot positive and better technically. So that's the progress we talked about. And yesterday we also talked about blame, right? And what we talked about blame was that we need to be a little careful about how, where do I go this? It's you. That's a problem. Okay. Let me quickly take this there. Okay. So we were talking about blame, and we said the blame has two important parts there. And the first part is understanding that feelings and needs are interrelated, which is very important for us to understand that the basics. And needs leads to feelings, which means using a feeling, I understand what the need is. And the moment I have a positive feeling, it means that some need has been met. And that sort of reflects itself mostly in the positive feelings. Mostly. At times you get the joy for no reason, just relish it, you see. Don't know to do much of, typically use these feelings, needs things for our normal day-to-day stuff, you see. If you get something a little sad, etc., negative feelings typically has some needs which are not met. And sometimes we may have some chemical imbalance in our body, etc., which may lead to some feelings, etc. For that, there are people to help us with the chemical intervention. And for our normal time in our life, feelings and needs are related. And the opposite is also true. When the need is not met, typically it reflects in a feeling. And a feeling is a wonderful example given, which we discussed about 4 weeks back, is like the fuel gauge or your meter, which shows the extent of gas in your car, the extent of petrol in your car. That's just a gauge. And the gauge is there to provoke us or trigger an action so that we can get the gauge back to normal. So between E and F, empty and full, the gauge shows that this is what your tank is right now, the condition of the tank. And if we see an empty E there, we immediately take the car to a nearby gas station, fill the tank, and guess what? E goes to F. You see, there is progress there. Likewise, whenever we find such feelings which are very pertinent in us, there is some need which needs to be addressed. And it's always good practice to understand what that need is. And looking at the intensity of the feeling, we can understand the extent of the need, the strength of the need. And then now we can start looking at, I have this need, how do I get it fulfilled? What do I do? What do I say? Whom do I influence? Which support I need so that I can get this need fulfilled? So that becomes a productive way of looking at how do I move forward. If I don't do that, what happens is blame is typically my feelings are because of you. You see, your actions created my feelings, caused my feelings is a direct blame of what happens outside as an event has created my feeling directly, is the assumption or is the perspective of blame. And the reverse of that, the responsible way to look at it is the green path, you see, where your actions obviously did not meet my need, and hence I got this feeling. So your actions did not create my feeling. It is my own needs which I can work on, which controls my feelings. I can't work on feelings. I can work on needs. When the needs are met, I can support my feelings, you see. And so when I start looking at your actions did not meet my need, and hence I have these feelings, my question becomes an intelligent question. My problem statement becomes an intelligent problem statement. Given what happened yesterday, what needs to happen now or tomorrow so that my needs are fulfilled. And that will take us to a sane path of trying to understand how do I get my needs fulfilled. Remember the two doors. One is a possibility door and second one is the purpose door. And these two doors takes our journey forward in a smooth way. Instead of your actions created my feelings, then what happens? We forget the need. Now the mind is very busy judging, labeling, analyzing, evaluating either the event or the person, which frankly is very unproductive. So even if we get into that, then what happens is we have to snap out of it as soon as possible. So that nothing wrong in getting into it by the force of habit. But once we observe it, we come out of it. Simple, you see. And if action directly impacts my feeling is my perspective, that's when I start feeling victimized. You see, where I start blaming the person, I start looking at that event or a person as a persecutor. My needs are hidden now. I don't even pay attention to my needs. So the moment I don't pay attention to my needs, I am busy judging what he did is wrong, what happened is wrong, what happened is right, etc. And labeling, it's very unfair, etc. And we get into too much of this evaluation mess, see, which is not going to help us, because until the need is met, that feeling is not going to go. And the whole danger with this blame game is, as we keep repeating it, that forms a system level wiring in my head. And instead of starting just doing blame game on a third person or a rare event, I start doing with people around me. In fact, I start doing with people whom I love. In fact, I start doing with people who genuinely love me. My relationship would be spoiled. And when the relationship is spoiled, obviously my happiness is going to come down, because the center pillar of my happiness journey is strong relationships, or at least with a few people, isn't it? So that is how dangerous the simple red versus green path is. So as far as possible, activity trap will pull us into blaming a situation, blaming society, blaming system, etc. Instead, let us make it a need statement. And the need statement can be, I want to influence the system. You understand what I'm saying? It need not be just, I just want food, I just want air. I want a need for a better system in society to be placed. Then your actions will be different. Instead of complaining, you start working on what can I do now to make it better. You get this, right? So these two are different things. Many times in the corporate language, they say, don't be a part of the problem, be a part of the solution. What they really mean, without explaining us properly, is this: don't go to the yellow pathway, red pathway, plan a green pathway. That's it. Yeah. So the moment the same problem, I want to solve the problem, complaining would mean blaming, you see, and trying to set something right even outside of me, which is a system, would be looking at it as, I need a better system because I'm part of the society. My need has become a bigger circle, you see. And so let me try influencing, or as you say, let me say lobbying for this change in the society. What do I do? It should I have to make a change.org problem statement, or should I have to collect some signatures? Should I have to make awareness? Should I have to address it through Lions Club or Interact Club or whatever clubs you have out here? Should I have to talk to my senator? Should I have to talk to my legislator? You have a million options. And the worst thing we can ever do is not even try and say nothing will change here. You know who didn't change here? I didn't change here. That's all. That nothing is me. So we have to try. We talked about it in one of those corporates in Pune, in India, Pune, as it's called, Pune. There, I told this and said, have you ever tried asking before we conclude? Yeah, it won't happen. This is too much for me. I can't even try. Try to take the first step. Only then your circle of influence increases. And this we are taught, we were part of the purchasing team. You see, in one of the companies I worked. In the purchasing team, the first dictum or idiom, not idiom, the first basic principle, axiom is, he was a Hindi chap who taught me, पूछने में क्या जाता है அப்படின்டா கேட்கறதுல என்னடா போறோம் ask, you see, what do you lose by asking? And we were all pepped up that day. He said, now it is not just theory, go and ask. And then I went to one of these T Nagar Khadi Bandars, and I wanted to buy the book called My Autobiography of the Truth, etc. And then I bought the book. I saw the rate was 100 rupees. Then I asked that person, can you give me 20% reduction for this book? He says, which planet did he come from? I just asked, and I didn't even bat an eyelid, as you say here. I didn't notice, but I didn't, I guess, you see. Then that person said, 20% is not possible. Okay, possible. 10%. Okay, give me. Then he actually reduced 10 rupees and gave me that book. And since it was Khadi Bandar and I am a sort of soft corner for Khadi, I returned the 10 rupees. But I felt very happy that it is working. Then I went to a big shop called Landmark. Okay. And I didn't want to buy anything. So I went there, and then there was some little bookmark or something I bought for 10 rupees. Then the chap gave me that bookmark. Then I asked him, how much reduction will you give here? And that person didn't even think I'm from a different country. He thought I'm from a different planet system itself. He said, fixed price. I said, I'm giving you cash, not credit card. How much will you give for cash purchase? He said, I don't think. You don't think, now go and ask your manager. So he went and asked the manager. He said, I'm giving cash and I know it takes 30 days for you to get the credit in credit card. Why don't you give me some reduction and all that? The manager said, what you asked is logical, but our system does not allow. In the paper bookmark, you keep it free of cost. I said, I don't want it free of cost. I'm trying a system here. Nothing comes free. In the karma, so I said, no, I don't want it, but you please talk to people. Cash, if people ask, you should give some credit. पूछने में क्या जाता है? Try it. What is the worst thing that can happen? No. What is the best thing that can happen? I may get what I want finally. I may get 50% of what I want. You see what I'm saying? So ask. पूछने में क्या जाता है? So don't ever assume it's not possible. You don't know. That's what is called possibility thinking. Not coming to a conclusion before I try is called a possibility thinking. That sounds very obvious, isn't it? Ask yourself how many times we hesitated because we thought it's not possible. That is because of activity trap. The past caught up to us in the present and telling us it cannot happen like that. We saw some questions like that also. It cannot. And we started the whole discussion about living in the present moment with this question of was and can be are not the same. Can be totally different from was. And I need to be a little more aware about it. And once I use that awareness, I can start influencing people. Even if my need seems impossible, I can take baby steps towards it. Bhavo hi bhavaka. This little thought, let me try now. Big things can happen when we try small things. Small things. Persistence can be. If it doesn't give, what do I lose? I have tried. You see, I have tried. And this I have found as a personal experience. I don't know if you agree with me. When I say agree with me, not hypothetically, whether it is your experience or not is what I'm trying to say. Agree. When I have a need, and the need is very difficult to be fulfilled, I feel better off trying and finding out it's not fulfilled now, rather than not trying it at all and assuming it won't be fulfilled. Just trying and the answer no gave me actually a tremendous strength and relief. And because after a while, the mind would keep on mulling over, maybe I should have, I could have, I did. It didn't happen. Now, let me keep it in abeyance now and again look at it. Maybe after 6 months, let me revisit. Something might have changed. You see? So, very possible. And that's what is called possibility thinking. And generally, when you are in a state of I don't know, it can give us two types of flavors. One is the flavor of insecurity comes because I don't know. Is it possible? I don't know can give insecurity. It can also give us this tremendous joy of exploration and a possibility. Let me see, let me try, let me ask, let me find out, you see. And that helps. And possibility thinking works magic. Asking. And even if we get a no, I have found out in my personal experience, it gives me tremendous relief that I have tried. Maybe I'll try something else in future. As of now, that need is there. I respect that need. It cannot be met right now. So what? I'll keep it. I'll find some other time to get it met. And I will revisit it later. If you are a very organized person, you can even write it down, you see. And that's the reason why whenever there are things which are happening outside, don't assume, please. See, I'll give another example. Government office in India, people have horrible stories to tell. I beg to differ because till this date, luckily or unluckily, I don't know, I never had any problem with any government office. The example was I was in Pondicherry and the Provident Fund was supposed, that's like your 401c. Only that doesn't reduce in India. It is always constant because it's a constant 8% growth till now. And that provident fund was to be transferred. You see, so I moved away from Pondicherry. I had to transfer this. And I wrote all these application, etc., gave it to the Pondicherry Provident Fund. I came back to Chennai. And I also gave that was a time when mobile phones were in vogue, and I have given my number, pager number, or whatever it was available there. And that person from Provident Fund office paged me saying, "Sir, problem in your application." And then I called him back. I said, "No problem, sir." And he said, "Sir, I know you moved out. And also no, you have written in your application that you are not employed right now, that you are now serving something and all that. And so, sir, there is a box which is not checked. And you have to sign there. And what do I do now?" I said, "I am in Chennai. What do I do?" And I asked him, "Can you tick the box for me and transfer the money?" I was shocked there. You see, pin drop silence. I used to read P.G. Wodehouse before. And he gives a very nice adjective for silence. It was called a pregnant silence, which means something is going to be delivered later in Artham. So it was quiet. And he was hoping, I will say, if it's not possible, let it go. Silence is very powerful in negotiation. You see, it made you very uneasy. So whenever you're negotiating, that's the tricks they teach us. If they ask something and just keep silent, that person who is not sure himself will say, "Seri mudiyala, problem. You face the silence with silence." So I also kept quiet. Then after about 20 seconds of that pregnant silence, he called back and said, "Sir, are you there?" I said, "I'm very much there. I'm waiting for your yes," is what I told him. Then he said, "Okay, sir, I will put it. But then when you come to Pondicherry, can you initial it?" I said, "Yeah, no problem. Whenever I come to Pondicherry, I will call you and I'll initiate it." And he did it. You see, ask, try. Suppose he said no, okay. What is there? I have some few experiences like that which strengthened, because I am registering positives. That's why I'm not able to remember much of the problems I had with the so-called government office. This was about 20 years back or 14 years back, you see. So don't feel helpless at all, because it's not going to help me. Second thing is try. And we told the story to this Pune people, remember? And one of the person stood up and he was moved to tears. He was really moved to tears. And then I said, that you are crying for something which is a cut and dried principle. I didn't even tell a poetry or a share. I'm not even a share. Why are you actually crying? Because I only shared that. Why are you crying? That person stood up and said, "Now I understood. His father, it seems, used to constantly write memo or letters of his road was obviously not, well maintained in his place. Okay, his father used to constantly send letter after letter, and he will ask his son to please post it, please." And that son became very frustrated, and he used some very strong words saying, "Nothing works here. Why are you on?" The father told, "It doesn't matter whether it works or not. I need to do my bit to be at peace," he said. "Yes, for your peace, you are making me go here and there." I didn't understand. But now I understood what a golden principle my father actually lived, where he never ever gave up, because he started constantly thinking, "I sent a letter to the municipality to fix the road. They didn't. Now what can I do? I will send one more letter and I'm at peace." And then I said one more letter. Then I went and met them. They promised me. Then I remembered they promised me. He didn't give up. Even though there was a problem, he was not suffering from the problem, because mentally he was clear, "I am doing my bit." He called all the residents. He wrote a memo. He sent it. And this person was getting uneasy because he already made up his mind nothing will happen. And that person said, "Now I realize that whether it happens or can happen or not, I don't know. But right now, I know one thing, I can do something about it." And using that possibility thinking as a process is intelligence. and not jumping, did it work or not? We will find out now. We don't know whether it will work or not right now. Right now, I know what I can do. And right now, I know what I can do in line with what can work. And holding on to the can instead of trying to decide will is the greatest intelligence of living in the present. Will it work? You don't know, I don't know. Can it work? I know, you know, yes. You see the difference between will and can? Huh? So here, when I went to Indonesia and Malaysia, their language is incredible. And I started by saying, I am so happy to be in a place which has incorporated positivity in their day-to-day language. Typically, the Indian community or the Malay community or even the Far East community in Malaysia has a habit. So if you say, can you come tomorrow? Can, they will say. Renduati can. Say can. If you have ever talked to Malaysian people, you'll know. They will use the word can. Not, yes, I think I can lang kadayadu. Short, can. I believe it's a dance or something. But they actually use the word can. Huh? I said, wonderful. And those were the people, most of the Indians, they went there, or they were sent there, or they went there, and they were all these very ingenious people who tried to use the best of their abilities to build a flourishing community out there. And that was possible only by a can thinking. So they have actually administered that in their language. Can we have this? Can. Remember, will is not important. Will nale poparon artham. Can is what the future is, you see. So don't will too much. Can it happen? Let me try. Will it happen? Let us find out, you see. And that is the way to look at how I move away from a blame game and rather focus on what can be done. Rumba powerful word. You should learn statistics, if you ask me. More than calculus, statistics is very important for our day-to-day life. And statistics taught me the power of can, you see, because we already discussed about deterministic and probabilistic way of looking at life, isn't it? Can is a probabilistic real way to look at life. Can tells us it's possible. Will it happen? Nobody can answer it. And the one who wrote astrology, Varaha Mihirar, first slokam or in the first chapter, he says, what will happen in future, even Brahma does not know. The whole astrology is about what all can happen given the data. See the humility. Adinala will, even astrologers won't tell you will. They will also tell you only can, it seems. So here, that can is a very important word. What can happen? What can be done right now will help us to become more, if I use the word positive. That's what is positivity. Instead of trying to jump to a will, let us first can the will. And if you will, use the can, you see, said Einstein. And that's what is the blame game. How do we get out of blame game? And when things are not met, I understand that is the feeling out here. So I trace back the arrow. And instead of directly blaming an event, I understand my feelings are caused by my need. Do you see how empowering that is? I'm not a victim, you see. What you did not fulfill my needs. So I shall work towards that. Or how do I make you fulfill it? Or how will I get my need fulfilled? You see? So that's the possibility space I have. The moment I think you created this feeling in me, then I'm already feeling helpless. And I'm already feeling lack of empowerment. And for example, suppose somebody comes late to dinner yesterday. I will tell you the 3 typical responses I have seen with people. First one, I was waiting for you in the hotel. Or let me make it this way. I was supposed to go to a dinner at 7 o'clock. And the person with whom I have to go to the dinner, they were waiting at their home. And I couldn't make it. So I couldn't even call them. So they waited for 1 hour, they ate. It didn't happen, hypothetical. And dinner client, And what happened was, the next day, they called me and said, I totally forgot I had to go to their home, or I needed to go to their home. They called up and said, Ramuji, hypothetically, they called up and they said, Ramuji, we were actually waiting for you yesterday night. You didn't come. It is okay. Have you heard it or not? Now you need to decipher, decode, because it is okay actually means opposite, right? If somebody says, I was expecting you to come to me, okay, you didn't come, it is okay. What will I feel? Meaning, the meaning is not, I called you yesterday, you didn't come, it is okay. That's, and the deep culture is below it. The words mean something else. Actually, the words means opposite. It is okay means it is not okay, right? But then at times, we may misinterpret that. And what the culture out there, which we need to appreciate, is, since you are the guest, your needs are paramount compared to even my needs, are the culture. You see, if you are aware of it and you truly embrace that concept, no problem. You shouldn't have the feeling of dismay or frustration, etc. But if you are feeling frustrated that I waited for you, didn't come, it is better to sort of express it in a non-intrusive way. We can do it in many ways. And one typical way would be, we were hoping that you would come, and we were waiting for an opportunity to spend time with you. And when you did not come yesterday, and because we wanted to spend time with you and we could not, we felt very sad. Now I'm using a need of, I needed to spend time with you, and that need was not fulfilled. So we were actually not happy. There is no blame here. Yesterday, because you didn't come, we are all very sad. It looks like an attack. It is an attack. Is it a justified attack or not is purely, negotiable. Okay, depending on which side of table I was waiting. So here, the fact that you didn't come yesterday and we felt very sad is very intimidating. But if they say, you didn't come yesterday, which is a fact, and because we were looking forward to spending some time with you and we couldn't spend that time with you, we felt sad. Same message. But then this is how we see through the eyes of blame, or this is how I hear through the ears of blame. And that is where I see a responsible statement coming, because they have thought through that. So next time, they may send a car, for example. You see, they still have a strong need to spend time with me. Possibly he forgot, so maybe I should call 1 hour before. See, I'm now looking at, instead of saying he is very irresponsible, he is very arrogant, he is very whatever, now I'm looking at, how do I get my need met if that's my need? Should I have to call 1 hour before? You see, the whole problem statement changes there. And if I am in the blame game, I gossip. I talk ill about people. I label people. I judge people. I talk around with people. The danger with that is that very attribute which we hate and we talk about more becomes our attribute in future. Be careful. Bhavo hi bhavakarana. You see? And which is the reason why looking at things without the paradigm of blame and following the green path makes absolute sense for our own inner health and our own future of a better possibility of getting our needs met, isn't it? And that is the reason why I found this to be pretty significant, to see the way I see. The positive people who will tremendous influence, people whom people look up to, they follow it. They follow it naturally. And we can develop it also. And relationships becomes better if we do this way. I've already told you this, but I'm sure, there is a rule called 1:5 rule. You've heard about this, right? It's called the happy marriage rule. Marriage rule. And what it really means is, for every one negative interaction I have with a spouse, it can be annulled only with 5 positive interactions. +1 - 1 = 0 stops in the realm of mathematics. In real world, -1 + 5 = 0, which means every negative interaction, criticism, or a negative feedback I gave to a person needs to be annulled. The dent in the relationship needs to be annulled only by 5 positive interactions. But if you imagine, but for the negative interaction, if I had these 5 positive interactions, it would have taken my relationship even further. The possibility, what do you call it? Opportunity cost, etc. And that's how you actually go forward and forward and forward. At times, we need to give a negative criticism or a negative feedback. If possible, make it feed forward. There is a difference between feedback and feed forward. I come from a strong electrical engineering background. Okay, electrical engineering background. Strong or not is pretty judgmental. And there is control systems. And this can be used for our psychology. It can be used for day-to-day work. That's the beauty with most of the branches of knowledge, especially engineering. Uh, Obviously, because I'm an engineer by trade. And when you actually look at those principles, we can apply it. The principle is something called feedback and feed forward. Feedback means I refer back to what happened in the past, point out to that, and maybe even non-judgmentally tell this need was not met in the past. Hence, meet my need in future. This is the most positive way to do feedback, positive feedback, right? The worst way to do feedback is you completely botched up yesterday, judging, labeling. And I felt very sad because you did like that. Take care. No, other person has no idea what you are trying to do. Are you trying to run a trial there? Or are you wanting something? Why did you tell all that? What was your need? At times has to be clarified, especially when things were not going smooth with people. So you need to be very clear in telling that this is what I needed. This is what happened. Hence, my need was not met. And so I felt this way. And that is still one. You see, that is still one. And to annul that one, I need to look at 5 positive stuff I need to do. One golden word called shut up at times has to be annulled by 5 sovereigns. You see, you see, and that is the reason why 1:5. You see, 1:5. So there is an alternative. The alternative is what is called as feed-forward control, which means I'd rather tell what I need from tomorrow instead of even referring to what happened in the past. This is what I need. Can we do this? And if the person says, why are you asking me? You can now tell why I need that, how it is in line with your purpose. If they ask the emotional why, but why are you telling me this? He said, it just happened that yesterday that need was not met. That's not important to me. For me, far more important is what I need in future. That's why I want to reiterate, makes it close to point 1. You see, feed forward. And many of my good leaders use feed forward control, saying this is what we need from you. Feed forward control works when you are talking to somebody new, because you don't have a background to even talk about this is right, this is wrong, etc. Isn't it? So as far as possible, we can say, this is what I need from you. And it won't be seen as an attack. It can be seen as a very clear, let us agree on this is what we need to do in future. And this can help in not getting into a murky past if we can avoid it. If we need to, we need to. Some confrontation we have to do. Some crucial dialogues we have to do. Let it be there. For small needs, we can very well say, this is what I need from tomorrow. Suppose a child does not turn up for an important activity, say evening prayers. You can say, yesterday you didn't come, day for day, you didn't come, tomorrow you should come. Obviously, you're first attacking and hoping, using that guilt or using that fear, you make the child come the next day. I don't think the current generation will work. The best way is to see from tomorrow, can we find out how we make sure that you come and show up to the evening prayers? Is the better way of approaching it. And then look forward to, you have these issues, then settle it. And so you are not trying to puncture before you try to get the need met. Feed forward control. Okay. So that's what is about the feelings we have talked about. And when we are in the blame red path, feelings typically say that you are the problem. You are the one who persecuted me. Event becomes a persecutor, person becomes a persecutor, and becomes very murky. And you caused my feeling, creates a tremendous dent in the relationship, and which is not going to help us for for fulfilling higher needs in future. Many times when relationships spoil, before you start approaching on how do I get my needs fulfilled, you need to first bridge the relationships, find a way to make the relationship stronger, and then you can talk about the need, which is the whole idea of customer relationship management, etc. Right? When you have a need, you need a strong relationship, especially when there is a lot of give and take, which is expected in future. So you build a relationship first. It has to be long term. Nothing can happen on short term. And that's why the feed forward control should work most of the times. If it doesn't, we already have a backup of feedback anyway. So here, the green path is how we go in a positive way, in a smooth way, for us to get our needs met and understand that your actions didn't meet my need, as simple as that. And since the need is not met, I have this feeling. And generally, when you tell people ask me about communication, so I'm telling you this also. Generally, good communicators tell us that when you add a feeling to your need, it actually helps to give the power to your request. I would be extremely delighted if you come tomorrow for the dinner with us at 7 o'clock. It adds a little bit of a vigor there. Can you come tomorrow at 7 o'clock? And along with that, you say, if you come, it will be extremely joyful for us. We'll give you extra little advantage. Possibility konjam jaasti aakum. The curve will be tilted to a right. If you actually use a feeling along with a request and a need, you see. And so feelings are important. It should not be disregarded, should be understood. And this is the wonderful statement by Dr. Rosenberg, one of the modern authors, as you Americans say, who just nailed it, you see, really. And every principle he is talking about, he claims that he was inspired by our Mahatma Gandhiji's non-violent writings and all that. He's a psychologist or psychiatrist, I don't know. And he adapted all our teachings and of non-violent writings by our Gandhiji. And Gandhiji adapted all that from Bhagavad Gita. So we have somebody who has really brought the ancient truths of the East to life by some practical applications in this country, which is what I truly love about this nation, a practicality and trying to say, how do I apply it? Rather than just knowing it, they want to apply it, research it, see how it works, and make money out of it, which is very important in the current state, I guess. So the practical application is beautiful. What others say and what others do may be the stimulus, but never the cause of our feelings. It stimulates. What does it stimulate? A lack of the meeting of the need is what it does. And the feelings are caused because of that. You bring this need into the equation, intelligence comes in. The moment I forget the need in the equation, I become judgmental. I start analyzing. I start evaluating. I start labeling. I start gossiping. I start wasting my time. See, and that is the beauty of this blame game. Okay, good. And now let us go back to the drama triangle, which we promised. Hopefully, we can cover it today. Otherwise, serial. So this is a concept developed by an American, Dr. Stephen Karpman, in about 1960s, I believe. And I think these were one of the founding principles of soap operas. I asked my American boss, why is it called soap opera? You see. And the answer surprised me. We all know why it's called soap opera. Not because it's smooth or it's clean and all that. I don't think it's either. But the point is, it's called soap opera because these long serials, like an opera, were all sponsored by soap makers, believe it or not. All this Palmolive, Luxa, whatever was there in 1960, those were the soap makers sponsored the shows. So they said, are you watching that soap opera? Pere soap opera. Smooth, isn't it? More froth than substance. So Dr. Karpman's drama triangle. Are you ready? And then there is a lovely book, which I'm surprised is not gained its importance, by this person called David Emerald. And he has written a book called Power of Ted. I read it long back. It was a random read, the summary read. And was said, my goodness, how beautifully he has captured what is obvious with tremendous appeal to remember, like this. Okay, so here it is. There is always in a drama, you need three people to make a soap opera. For a family drama to be interesting, you always need a V, you need a P, and you need an R. Okay, and the V is typically a person who sees himself or herself as a victim. And victim nale blame, victim nale unfair, victim nale helplessness, all that comes in. Now, I'm not talking about what actually happened. I'm talking about perspectives. You please, I'm not belittling suffering people go through, etc. But then we are trying to find out what can be my perspective to make the best out of the existing situation so that I go in the journey of fulfilling my needs aligned to a purpose, right? Compound sentence. So here, what is this V? V is actually victim. And P, every victim needs a persecutor. Nobody can be a standalone victim. If there is no persecutor actually available, they will imagine a persecutor, you see. So there has to be a person persecuting, there has to be a victim, and there has to be a rescuer. This is how the drama triangle of the dread and the victim happens. So he called it as a DDT. That was the time when the dichloro, diphenyl, trichloroethylene, or whatever it's called, that fertilizer was considered poisonous, you see. So they were trying to take out this DDT out. And so he named this triangle as the dread drama triangle, DDT. I didn't make it up. It was Emerald who said that. And then he says that the moment you get into one vertex, there will always be the other two available for you. Once you think you are a victim, immediately there will be a persecutor. You need a persecutor. Otherwise, you can't feel victimized. And there is also a rescuer waiting for you. But you have to remember, only the V part of it has to be necessarily human. The P and R can actually be inanimate also. For example, a situation or an event can be seen as a persecutor. An event in my life can be a persecutor. Or some aspiration I had which was not fulfilled can be the source of persecution for me, perceived persecution. And rescuer can be either a person who always wants to show pity and always wants to actually listen, console, sympathize with that victim. You see, now you get the triangle. And the rescuer can also be binge watching, shopping as a, addictive shopping, all the addictions, you see. And it can also be other addictions. Why should I even tell all the addictions? It can be habit. You have what is called as habit forming addictions, etc. That's how rescuer goes there. And so this triangle is this triangle of dreaded drama triangle, or dreadful drama triangle, where a victim always has a fear. The whole triangle happens out of fear, bhayam. Fear of victimhood. Would I be taken for a ride? Would I be persecuted, etc.? That fear is constantly there. For a persecutor, if at all there is a real persecutor, and the persecutor needs a victim now, the persecutor's fear is the fear of loss of control. You see, what if I don't show a little sternness? I may lose control of the situation, so I need to be stern, etc. And then a rescuer's purpose is defined by showing sympathy. I don't know if you are aware, there are some very special cases where even a parent wants to keep the child in the state of sickness so that there can be a constant caregiving by that parent. Sickness. Even a couple of movies came out of that sickness. When I saw the movie review, I was appalled. You see, that's an extreme case. I'm sure none of us ever know anybody who actually have this type of rescuer mentality to the extreme. But you see, and they wantedly make the child sick so that there can be caregiving, because the moment child becomes healthy and sort of grows its own wings, there is no other purpose which that person has. There will be a fear of loss of purpose. You see, We are safe. But it is there. I'm not talking hypothetical stuff. There is some name for it. And the movie also came, I believe, on that. I didn't see that movie. I couldn't bring myself to even see it. And here, victim, persecutor, rescuer. Now you get the picture now? With these three, you can run 20, 40 years. You see? That's a serial. It's also called life at times, if you are not careful. There was a person in our company. His name was Veera Sundarnu Per. I remember that. And do you know what was his nickname? The Bold and Beautiful. Veera Sundar, yeah. So people used to call him by a soap opera name. So I remember it was such a great soap opera, which I believe ran for 10 years, 20 years. Yeah. And this is what happens. So now the problem with watching such soap operas is we tend to get to one of these vertices if you get a chance, because we run the story. Serial daily meditation pandra mari. Evening daily you're watching it, you're running it, you're talking about it. Over time, we will get into one of these indexes, you see, and we'll search for a victim to console. All is okay in your house? Yes, because I have nobody to console now. What is my purpose? And I will be waiting for somebody to be victimized so that I can console. Or the rescuer problem. And then a victim would want to actually imagine a persecutor and create a persecutor out of somebody so that it can continue to be a victim. Or a persecutor may start looking at etc. and start becoming a persecutor if you keep seeing such serials too much. And that is this dreaded drama triangle of victim, persecutor, rescuer. Whenever there is a victim, there is a persecutor. There has to be. And whenever there is a sense of victimhood, there has to be a rescuer. And the rescuer can become very dangerous. It can even break the boundaries of morality. It can break the boundaries of sanity. It can break the boundaries of self-discipline. We need a rescue. So because the victim thinks I am eligible for a rescue, because after all I am a victim, so I deserve it. And that's how binge happens and all that. You see what I'm saying? And so this is the dreaded triangle. And let me tell you a few more things about it. When there is a victim, it needs a persecutor. And the victim can actually start imagining victimhood out of some loss which has been experienced in the past, or a thwarted aspiration, or some little problem, obviously a real life problem which has happened in the past, which somehow the support system was not there to bring that person out. Then the person started thinking like that. A persecutor can be any of these three, you see. It can be an event, it can be an ailment, it can be a person, it can be any of these three. It can be a body ailment, or it can be a person, or it can be even an event outside. And these three, guess what these three are called? It's called the Tapatrayam in India. That source of affliction, or our imagined source of affliction, or our source of affliction which reacted to me, some other person or some other object which is living is called Adi Bhautikam, and some other event which was a natural event like earthquake or sudden problems in nature, floods, etc. is Adi Devikam, and some injury with my body is a part of Adi Bhautikam. So you have these three. Adhyatmikam rather, the last one. So these three are the source of persecution. Now you get the drama, right? I tried to make it a little light because it's a very heavy topic, very touchy topic. So I want to make it just an introduction to that so that you can do your thinking and work out the details and see things in a very different light. So we have these three indices, and let us look at the rescuer a little more. The victim feels helpless and hence feels a lack of responsibility. And the victim feels that I can't anyway do anything. What is the point? I can't control anything. Everything happens on its own accord. I'm totally not able to control anything at all. And that is a sense of defeatism and a sense of hopelessness and sense of helplessness which envelops that victim. And hence, the circle of influence, it will never even look at it. That victim can't even think that there is a possibility that I need to try. because of they burned their fingers earlier. I don't know. But for some reason, the possibility that I can make an attempt, I can try, there is a can possible, is not even thought about. So automatically it will never happen. Finish. Is how a victim thinks. And now let's how a victim typically behaves is what psychologists say. They can be very defensive for everything. They can be overly submissive also, and they can be passive aggressive, and very sensitive. You say something very small, sensitive, you see. And they always looks, இதெல்லாம் எனக்கு தெரியாதுப்பா, இதெல்லாம் psychologists tell this. Always they look upon others for their self-worth. The last point bothered me, because in the Instagram problem we have with teenagers is bordering towards this last line, which is very dangerous, where this is what is his name? There is a psychologist. I think all parents need to hear him. I find it logical. I don't know if it's true, but I think I will accept what he says. His name is Jonathan Haidt, Haidt. And generally, because I do all these trainings all over the place, people send me such things which sort of capture their attention. And I know when somebody sends something like this, it would be really, worthwhile. So I saw that small video about all these youngsters, millennials, Gen X, Gen Z, Gen Z dash, and all that stuff. He was saying that the way in which middle schoolers, typically boys and girls, have two different challenges. And he says, though it is stereotypical, he says typically that's what happens. Generally, he said, not me, it can be verified, that girls in middle school have their major source of stress from things like the social media platforms, where they are now looking for their group of friends to like their photo for their self-worth or something like that. Where if their group of friends likes some other group's person's photo, now sad apidoma. And if my friends didn't like my photo, it is taken as then there is some problem with me and that girl or that person, etc. And that goes in a way, though it sounds trivial to people outside of this matrix, it's very important for those children when they are undergoing such experiences, because that relates a little bit to looking to others for self-worth. And of course, a child has to grow fully before, it needs obviously a parental pat and a parental nurture for self-worth for some time, and then it finds out that I don't need anybody else to actually certify my self-worth. Takes time, but in the formative years, all these are there. That's the reason why we need to be a little aware of what is happening in this world. Listen to those genuine psychologists and people who are social psychologists and all that stuff. So this is how a victim would be defensive. Some can be defensive, some can be passive aggressive, some can be sensitive, some can be looking to others for self-worth. இதெல்லாம் படிக்கும்போது என்ன தெரியுமா தோணுது, ஐயோ நான் ஆல் ஆஃப் த அபவ் மாதிரி இருக்கேன். அதுதான் ப்ராப்ளம். I believe it is called the Harvard Medical School syndrome போல இருக்குதுங்க பேர். I don't know. There is this person called Sean Acker who called it the Yale Medical School syndrome because he came from Harvard. So I'm sure that it was Harvard Medical School. Where when you start studying such ailments, it appears that I have all of it. You see, what is the sign of, say, manic depression? Slight headaches now and then. Ama. At times you feel sad for no reason. Ada ama. And then finally they will say, confirm case undruva. And then or star photo, you have to go 10 pages down. These are only typical, it may not be for you, etc. That is the reason why the Google medicine is very dangerous, you see. If you look, all symptoms seems to work for everything. Are you feeling a little pain in your left hand? Ama, heart attack undruva. Edo ro basketball ai kai valiyoda ukandundrupom. Paatha ada padicha apro pidichundruvom. So the reason being, don't be concerned about all this, but I'm telling you, this is what is there. Normally, everybody feels all these things here and there. But to understand how do I get into a master syndrome of how I become the master of my life and my living is what we are going to see. All right. So now this is the alternate way of perceiving. The blame taken to its total, to its borders, to its boundary is what I showed there. And this is I'm a master. I'm a master. I control my life to whatever extent possible. And then C means I have a person who challenges me to grow all the time. If there are no challenges, then how can I grow? And E means the one who empowers, like a coach. The difference between a rescuer and a coach is, I'll tell you, I'll come to that. So you have this triangle, and this is what he calls as TED, which means the empowerment diagram, or he called that the empowerment, something to do with D, a long time since I read it. So dynamic, the empowerment dynamic is what he says, TED. And it's a fable. It's a very well-woven fable. So M stands for master, C stands for challenger, E stands for empowerer, which means a coach. So whenever I have somebody who seems to give me a challenge, I can either look in the eyes of a victim and say persecutor, or there is a challenge and I need to get that challenge. I need to cross that challenge. I need to not look at it as an obstacle. I have to look at it as a stepping stone. And so how do I get my needs met given that challenge? Makes my thought process very different, because need comes into focus. Purpose comes into focus. That's the whole thing. The need and purpose, you remember, everything is taken care. Now let me go. The typical V is that maroon thing, and M is the orange thing. V, victim. M stands for master. First, the typical victim's words, if you hear, it will always be, I don't want this. I don't want him to do this. I don't want her to do this. I don't want this to happen. Most of the needs would be a negative statement, and rather than asking, what do you really need? You see, that's how you pull that person out of that mess, or pull ourselves out of that mess. Instead of saying, I don't want that to happen, tell what you want to happen. And if you want to be clear about what you want to happen, you need to have a clear idea of what my need is. What is my purpose? You see? And the second thing is absolute non-acceptance, constantly going back. You should have, I could have. And it is easy, and I don't know if I'm right in telling this, there is a comfort in non-acceptance, because that's how generally the mind progresses. It's easy. There is a comfort in it. Even though it is making me restless, there is a comfort in thinking that he is a persecutor, she is a persecutor, that is a persecutor, I am a victim. Yedo or comfort zone irukku. Because for us to accept, pull our socks and get out of that challenge and meet the challenge, I need to get out of my comfort zone. So I guess there is something called a comfort. I don't know. I may be wrong, but this is what I heard from people who know something about the subject. And typical way of looking at what happens outside is what we covered for the past 1.5 days. Blame, blame, blame. And a master is clear. This is my purpose. Okay. Whatever happens outside, let it happen. That is what is now. But can be is going to be different. What needs to happen, I am clear. Let me align what can be with what I need and start working towards it. How do I approach it? How do I do it? You see? So it will be a very clear purpose-driven perspective is what a master's perspective is. What is the purpose? And instead of kicking the past, somehow practice acceptance with small stuff and then slowly go to the big stuff. You can't suddenly take a big leap. Small things which are irritating us, etc. Practice acceptance. You need to build it up. No? Suddenly you can't be a long jumper with 5 meters or 6 meters or 8 meters or whatever is the standard. First I start small. And then I practice. Then I can really do a big leap. Like that. So this is the difference between these two triangles. And how do I move from one triangle to another is beautiful. How do I do that is like this. From a victim to a master, I start by I start by asking this simple question. Instead of complaining, what is my purpose? What do I need? And let me start working towards that need. What can I do to get my need met? Whether the need is met or not is secondary. I hope you realize it. The perspective of seeing it itself strengthens us, itself reduces the misery. And of course, we need to get the need met. Nobody denies that. but the perspective itself gives tremendous relief. Because more I hypnotize myself, think I am a victim, my hands are tied, I have to do it, I'm forced, what choice do I have? I am telling myself again and again, I'm injuring myself. It is a self-injury of the mind when I keep telling myself I'm helpless, I'm helpless, I'm helpless. We are not. Bhagavan has given us small circle of influence. We can increase, and to whatever limits possible. At least we should explore the limit. Na? That's why he gave buddhi. You see, the buddhi is the one which helps us to explore and expand what I can influence with my life and with lives of people whom I care about. So the movement from victim to master happens with the simple perspective of need. What do I need? What is my purpose? Focus. Move away from a complaint to a purpose standpoint. How do I move from a persecutor to a challenger? This typically happens in some parenting models. I'm not sure whether it happens in America, but I'm sure it happens in Europe. What it is what is my intention? Whenever we are trying to, when there are people under my control, because they rely on me for their physical needs or for emotional needs or for whatever needs, when I demand something from them, how do I ensure that I don't get into this triangle of persecution and be a challenger? Is ask again, what is my intention here? Is my intention something to do with, I told it didn't happen, how dare, you see? Or is it an intention that my self-image is injured because discipline didn't come as I demanded? Or my intention is I need that child or that subordinate or that peer to actually get the need met. And that comes, you again approach that with love and empathy as a background value and look at it again. The way in which you look at a problem may change. Maybe it is not as important as you thought. Maybe there can be a leeway. Maybe I can give a little give and take and get the need met instead of being too strict. You see? So the intention, ask yourself, what is the intention in me trying to get this done from the person who is somehow under my control or under my authority or whatever it is. Finally, the rescuer to an empowerer or a coach is, do I believe that person to be complete without me, or I think I will complete you? You see. So for my completion, I need that little bit fragment out there. If I am feeling very secure, I don't need somebody else's, I don't need to help somebody to feel very happy. You see, I am happy being what I am. And if you need my support, I shall be a catalyst, which means I shall empower you yourself to be what you need to be, rather than saying, anytime you want something, come to me. Why can't I make the other person self-sustained? Why should I keep throwing in every 1 week some money and say, next time you want something, come to me, I will give you. And that is how a rescuer wants to work. And there is a joy in rescuing. You see, that's the whole problem now. We feel important. There is a joy in solving other people's problems. Why? We feel important. And but we need to empower people. That's real sign of love. That's a real sign of love when we empower people. And so that is the beauty of moving from a rescuer to an empowerer is, do I believe that person to be whole even without me? And I'm only a catalyst to make sure that manifestation of perfection is going to be complete with my little catalyzing, my little coaching. A coach would always want the one who is being coached to be empowered so that that person knows how to take care of his or her needs on its own accord. So I'm going to coach only the upper level step. If I tell what to do each time, it's called go for it. Go for that. Go for this. Then I'm not a coach. I tell them a system of how you manage yourself so that you can be self-sustained. That's what a coach does. And a coach will be very happy to be redundant one day. You see, a coach has to be happy that I'm redundant. And I start taking the joy in the success of my coachee. And that is the beauty of a coach. You see, redundancy. I'm ready to be redundant. That's why coaches are enablers. And future 90% of careers in the industry is going to be enabling, which means the people who are enabling would never taste direct success. They are not going to be in the limelight because we are in service. When you serve, you are enabling. So the whole idea of enabling should be incorporated right from formative years. And even in Gopakutiram, we have to start looking at how do I make the enabling as a value for the children to relish, so that they don't have to hog the limelight to feel happy all the time. It's good that we'll give them limelight. But how do I relish enabling being behind the scenes? How do I relish the job I do, even though the world may not see the actual result of what I did? I'm going to be in the backstage. The person or the project or the product which I enabled is going to hog the limelight, you see. And 90% of careers in future is going to be enabling. And that is the reason why coach is an enabler, empowerer. And they empower and say, I want to be whole. I want that person to be standing in its own legs, so that one day it should not even need me. I should be happy seeing the independence and seeing the power which that person wields. Guru is like that. Guru is like that. And we gave an example of Adi Shankaracharya. There is a philosopher's stone. And generally, Mahatmas are called philosopher's stones because they not only convert iron into gold. Philosopher's stone is purportedly some ancient stone which can convert iron into gold. Poetic thing. So, philosopher's stone is something, if you touch any metal, it becomes gold. But a guru is not a philosopher's stone because he not only converts metal into gold, he converts a metal into another philosopher's stone. And he totally empowers them and feels happy in the success of the one whom he empowered, who is himself becoming or herself becoming an empowerer. அதுதான் ஒரு ஒரு குரு ஹிருதயம். அதுதான் கோச்சுன்னு சொல்றோம் இல்லையா? கோச்சுக்காதீங்க. And this is what we are actually looking at, the new triangle of an empowerer, master, and a challenger. And how do I not get into the other triangle of a victim, persecutor, and rescuer is ask yourself. You see, these three fundamental questions. Never get into one of these vertices because you will make other two vertices happen. You see? And when we have this strong addiction, deep inside, we need to work around with counseling and all that if to get it out. But deep inside, the correction needed is somewhere I think I need an escape. Somewhere I think I need a rescue. Somewhere I'm assuming myself to be a victim. Correct that. And then our chance of falling back into all these addictions of rescuing ourselves falls drastically. The chance of falling back. That's what I thought we will share today. And yeah, I have some questions for you. And and then I'll quickly summarize what we talked about. And I would request this weekend, if we do, and the notice will come, I would request one of you to volunteer and give a summary of one concept which you applied and worked. Just give one minute and be very non-intrusive. Cut off all the personal references, etc., as far as possible. And I would request you, if possible, even today, if possible, since we are doing it for Boston, and if possible, please tell something which you applied and worked, because it will help in reiterating other people's conviction in trying it. Always, it's good to see somebody else's succeed with the principle. It gives me tremendous confidence to try it. And I will also give you a quick summary of what we talked about in intelligent living. We started with synchronizing intellect and the mind quite some time back. And then paying attention inward is all about the intellect's job to see how the mind is wavering, how I do the choosing, etc. We talked about acceptance. We talked about registering positives. And then we talked about T. The time, energy, and attention are the three resources. Make sure we don't fritter it away. And we talked about daily small improvements. Don't try something big. Try something small, achievable, yet not comfortable. Slowly stretch it, stretch it, stretch it. And then we also talked about gratitude. How do I develop gratitude and allow my registering positive to sort of flow into this wonderful value, this wonderful state of being, if you ask me, called gratitude. Okay. And what we didn't address in quite some time, I've been getting these questions about We were getting questions about prayers. We'll do a separate session for prayers, and we will address that also. Then I have a question for you, for which only you can answer. Do you want this journey to continue? Are you getting any value? Or shall I go back to our Bhagavatam, Ramayanam, which is pure, same values only it is espousing in more traditional way. And if you have some value for it, if there are some 200 or 250 people who are signing up for it, we'll continue this weekend. Otherwise, I will use the same values, etc., through the medium of, say, Bhagavatam or Ramayana or Bhagavad Gita or general, bhakti and religious topics that you need to answer. And I'm sure whom to contact, contact them. And if there are 200 people plus who sign up, next time we can actually do about prayers, and we can do a summary this Saturday about what we did in the last 6 weeks. It's been 6 weeks, I guess, or 5 weeks. 6 sessions, right? Yeah, 8 sessions, right? Right. So we have been having 8 sessions here, and that is about my goodness, 12 hours. And I'm very grateful that you spend the time. I think you see value, or you sort of respect me or like me, or both, and that's why you have been sort of tuning in, and I'm truly very grateful for that. It also helps me to reinforce my values. Let me know if this journey shall continue in this form. The journey will anyway continue. And if you think it needs to continue, please let us know. We'll ensure that we continue this and add more topics based on what you gave us a feedback.